What is up, everybody? It's your boy, Elite Waterboy. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about the recent trade of Teddy Bridgewater over to the Denver Broncos, right? Denver Broncos I believe, are giving up a 6th-round pick. And this trade, well, my opinion is that if this trade was done because hey, we want to draft a skill position in the draft, or we want to draft, a receiver, a running back, or not a running back, but like a receiver, maybe a defensive player, a cornerback, or something like that. And we don't want to get a quarterback. If that's the if that's the intent, like let's trade for Teddy Bridgewater and we'll start him rather than drafting a quarterback. I think that's a horrible trade. I think it's a stupid trade. I think it's pointless. I think the problem with Teddy Bridgewater is that he's good enough to win you games, but he's bad to the point that he's not gonna win you a significant playoff game or take you to the Super Bowl and win that. Okay, so what ends up happening is he leads you to a decent record, right? And you end up picking late in the draft, but you're never gonna be good enough to accomplish anything in the playoffs. Okay, and I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is the option. I don't think he's going to do much with Denver if that is the route they want to go. But if they traded for Teddy Bridgewater to groom or help groom their next rookie quarterback, then I think it's a genius move, okay? Now, we'll find out tonight. I'm recording this on 4/29. I'm recording this on the day of the draft. It's 10 a.m. Eastern. And, the draft is going to be tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. So we'll see what happens, okay? But I think that if they traded Bridgewater to be a bridge, pun intended, between the rookie quarterback they get and, being able to start, I think that's genius, okay? And reason being is because Teddy Bridgewater has one of the most fascinating stories in the NFL. He's a fascinating human being, okay? First of all, let's start off with his injury in 2016, right? This guy, look, Teddy Bridgewater has a lot in common with Alex Smith in terms of, they're sort of game manager quarterbacks that, like I said, they'll win you games. They probably won't win you a Super Bowl, but they'll win you games, and they'll get you to the playoffs. But they're not great. They're good, not great, right? Let's talk about that injury, though. The injury that occurred to Teddy Bridgewater in 2016. Okay, and that's something else he has in common with Alex Smith. Really gruesome injury. Even though Alex Smith got it towards the end of his career, Teddy Bridgewater got it at the beginning, which is, arguably, I guess you could say worse, because it's like, Alex Smith already played a full career before that injury. And the fact that he came back, I mean, it was amazing. But the fact Teddy came back as a young player going through this and not getting depressed or, just saying, I'll just be an analyst or something like that and fight to make it back on the field. It's astonishing. I wanted to read you a few things from that injury in 2016, right? So this was it was a practice, all right? It was a practice, a non-contact practice, 2016. With the Vikings, right? He was the quarterback for the Vikings. He was starting. I believe this was his third season, or his second or third season. But yeah, it says here. I'm reading from the Sporting News, an article that they had about Bridgewater's injury. Bridgewater went to execute a play-action fake with Adrian Peterson, and when Bridgewater's left leg hit the ground on one of his strides, it gave out entirely. As it turns out, Bridgewater essentially separated the upper part of his leg from the lower part of his leg. With the breaking point being his left knee. The injury was known as a tibio-femoral dislocation. The femur and tibia bones essentially came disconnected. That dislocation also led to the tearing of Bridgewater's left ACL. Basically, in that one movement, he had really bad structural damage to his leg and towards ACL. Okay? And actually, the Dr. Will Carroll, which actually I'm not even sure who he is, but he appeared on a local radio station and said that the Vikings training staff may have saved Bridgewater's life. This was a life-threatening injury. Like, him losing the leg was like the last thing on the doctor's minds or on the training staff minds. This is basically like we gotta save this guy's life before we can even focus on saving his leg, which is it's crazy. It's crazy how just running and just like your leg gives out and you're about to die. Okay. And I looked up his injury, a tibio-femoral dislocation. It's a formal name for a dislocated knee. It's a fairly rare injury, but a serious one. A tibio-femoral dislocation can cause damage to the structures that support your knee. This may result in joint instability, which can be a long-term problem. He got a really bad version of this, right? Like if this was in categories, you have like Category 1 hurricane, which is like a light hurricane, tropical storm. Then you have Category 5, which is like, oh my God, it's a big deal. It's going to destroy everything in its path. This was a Category 5 tibio-femoral dislocation. This was a really bad injury, okay? And, I was looking at... Not only was the injury so bad that... not only was the injury so bad that it hurt. Not only was, obviously this injury took out Teddy for basically multiple years. But... the way people describe it, this might have been probably the most gruesome injury in NFL history. Keep in mind, we're talking about the NFL. And, like, here are a few comments from his actual teammates that were there when it happened. Harrison Smith, for example. He was running downfield with his back to the play, making sure he didn't get beaten on a deep route. Even in practice and a non-contact drill, it's important. 6 weeks later, he's standing next to the field and running the calculus through his head. He concludes that he must have been the person's farthest from the injury. He pauses a moment to give thanks. When it happened, he heard a scream from a receiver who had turned back towards the play. It was an expletive that carried an unmistakable pitch. Pain. You play this game long enough and you learn to recognize it. He must have pulled a hammy, Smith thought. Smith swung around to the receiver and saw he was looking towards the backfield. He was reacting to someone else's pain. Smith followed his eyes to see helmets flying, teammates jumping away, like the grass was on fire. He heard them screaming, and Bridgewater screaming. He saw powerful men rendered powerless. That quote, like, got to me, okay? And then there's another quote from Matt Asiata. He was 10 yards away from the 30-yard line, right hash, when he heard a bust of noise and he couldn't identify it. He looked back and saw Bridgewater on the ground and saw bodies scattered. Saw helmets popping off his helmets like so many bottle caps. They all remember the scattering bodies and flying helmets, no matter where they were. The next thing Asiata heard was the voices, all the voices, people going crazy with Bridgewater a few registers above the rest. Asiata couldn't quite comprehend it. He had just seen him in the huddle, had lined up behind him at running back for a play in a non-contact drill. Nobody ever gets badly hurt in a contact drill. Asiata listened to the screams and thought, he must be faking it. It's a prank. Something Teddy thought up with the lineman. This can't be real. But the noise kept coming. Trainers filled the void left by the scattered bodies. Asiata ran back towards Bridgewater and then veered off. He and a couple teammates took a knee and said prayer. They closed their eyes to pray for the teammate. They closed their eyes so they wouldn't have to see. So these grown men who literally on a daily basis get concussions, tear up their hamstrings, tear up their ACLs, go through the most gruesome injuries that, hey, if we tear an ACL, we talk about it forever. These guys tear an ACL once a year, tear a hammy once a year, There's, ordinary people, you talk to them, it's like, oh, yeah, I remember 5 years ago I tore up my hammy. And, you talk to football, messed up my hammy like last week. And it still hurts, but, got to keep playing. These are the type of people we're talking about. These are superhuman, and they were broken. And keep in mind, nobody. And you ask anybody to describe the injury, and nobody will describe it for you. Nobody. Keep in mind, these people have seen gruesome things before. Okay? And the behavior they admit, it's sort of like veterans when you ask them what happened to your friend. Oh, I don't like to talk about that. I don't like to talk about what happened to Jimmy. We were walking. A mine went off, and what happened to him? What did the mine do to his leg or to his head or whatever? I don't want to talk about that part. That's how you know it was gruesome. That's how you know it was a serious deal. And they actually interviewed, and those quotes were from ESPN, on ESPN.com. It says this can't be real. The moment Teddy Bridgewater went down, by Tim Keown, the senior writer at ESPN. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. And last thing I'm just gonna read is from the Washington Post. This is basically, it's called Teddy Bridgewater's horribly grotesque knee injury even freaked out his surgeon. Which, keep in mind, this guy's dealt with football injuries before. He's dealt with probably worse things than football injuries as well. So this guy was freaked out. These were his quotes. It was just a horribly grotesque injury. It's mangled. You make the skin incision and there's nothing there. It's almost like a war wound. Everything is blown. Some people said that it looked like his knee had blown up in a mine. Okay, like an explosion went off in his knee. This surgery was an absolute gut test, a test of what you're made of. And I've seen people, and I've seen it break people down. I never saw it break Teddy down. Most people have no idea the volume of workload this kid put in. He had a toothpick of a leg he had to rebuild. But it's certainly the worst knee dislocation in sports I've ever seen without having a nerve or vessel injury. It's a horrific injury. You've torn every single thing in your knee and it's hanging on by one ligament on the side like a hinge. That right there, that last part, the way he explained it kind of made me feel a little lightheaded. I don't know about y'all. That's serious. This man basically blew up his knee. Like, and I don't mean blew up like, oh, he got hit. No. They basically put a bomb in his knee. That's how it sounds. This guy went through one of the most horrific things any human being has had to go through. And keep in mind, he wasn't a cashier. He wasn't he wasn't a IT guy. He was a guy who needed to use his legs. He was a guy that needed to put weights on that leg. He had to. That's how he made a career. That's how he made a living, right? Probably could have just retired and gone to ESPN or Fox and they would have taken him. But he didn't. He came back. And now he's one of the most respected and revered quarterbacks, or not even players, to ever play the game. He's beloved league-wide as a great human being. Here are actually some quotes when he actually got to the Carolina Panthers. In the first 2 weeks, just the first 2 weeks, which is, it's pretty quick. Many players have spoken highly about the leadership and professionalism that the new quarterback Teddy Bridgewater has already brought to the young team. It says here, the leadership did not come easy with Bridgewater, who expected to be a full-time starting quarterback for the first time since before he tore his ACL and suffered structural damage to his knee in 2016. This is by the way, it's Sports Radio WFNZ Sports. This is an article from them, and the article says Teddy Bridgewater using past experiences to be a better leader in person. And it says one of the biggest teaching. It says here. It says a lot of his teaching moments have come from his own struggles and experiences. And this is what Bridgewater says. That experience and things that I've gone through a couple years ago has helped me become a better man, a better teammate, a better football player. Bridgewater told reporters on Monday, "I'm thankful that it happened because who knows if I would have been the same man hadn't it never happened." Like, this guy literally looks back at one of the most gruesome injuries ever and says, "I'm happy it happened. It's made me the man I am today." That's like, I don't feel like there's that many people in the world that exist in the world that are made out of the same material that Teddy Bridgewater is made out of. And I mean mentally. Like, he's probably one of the most mentally strong human beings to walk the earth, period. One of the biggest teaching moments that Bridgewater has told his fellow quarterbacks and teammates so far this camp was to stay ready. As a backup to Drew Brees with the New Orleans Saints last 2 years, Bridgewater didn't expect to receive many opportunities, but that changed in the week 2 of 2019 when Brees went down with an injury. "I wasn't prepared," said Bridgewater, who went 17 of 30 for 165 yards. "I had my mind up that I was behind Drew Brees and I would never play. You can always talk the talk, but you'd be ready. You'd be ready. But you never know until that opportunity presents itself. After the game, I was embarrassed. I had to hear it from my family and fans, and I told myself I never wanted to experience it again. My message to those guys, Will Greer and PJ Walker, was just to always stay ready. Basically, what I'm getting at, Teddy, and I'm sorry, I basically did a lot of reading in this video of articles, right? I'm just trying to get the message across of what type of man Teddy Bridgewater is. Okay, he's a superhuman. He's I think he's a slightly below average quarterback, but I think he's an amazing human being. I think he's one of the toughest people to ever play the sport, and I think he'll be a great example for any rookie quarterback the Denver Broncos end up drafting. If that is the case, if they do end up drafting a quarterback and having Teddy guide him, that would be one of the best guides any quarterback can ask for. And I project the Broncos to land Trey Lance, right? And somebody like Trey Lance, who's gotten comps to Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I mean, Patrick Mahomes sat a year and learned from a guy very similar to Teddy named Alex Smith. And like I said at the beginning of the video, they're very similar. Not only in them being game managers and kind of preferring that short passing offense rather than big arm, stuff like that. They're great humans, and they have one of the greatest mindsets ever, one of the toughest minds in football. And I think he could be what Alex Smith was to Mahomes. He could be that to either Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Fields, whoever they end up getting. And if that is the true goal of the Denver Broncos, then I see that next quarterback thriving. Alright guys, that's it. I hope you all enjoyed that. I hope you guys liked it. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And this is your boy, Elite Water Boy, signing out.